Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here, Private Lenders Podcast. Thank you for checking out the show. Before we get started, one thing I wanted to mention is that we are currently planning for our next Inner Circle meeting. This is the top level of the Hard Money Mastermind, is the Inner Circle. It's about 20 or so awesome private lenders from around the country. We get together twice a year. The next one is November 8th and 9th in Nashville, Tennessee. If you would like to apply to be in the Inner Circle, please visit hardmoneymastermindinnercircle.com. Make applications, speak to Dave, our program director, see if you'd be a good fit. Okay, today's topic is pretty related to the Inner Circle, and it is about when and how to scale your private lending business. Because in working with lots of different lenders in the mastermind and just friends in the industry, stuff like that, we've seen some people do it right, and we've seen some people do it in ways that we would not recommend. And we have a number of different examples. One that jumps to mind first as we were discussing this topic is that you can't scale complicated. You can only scale simple. So when you have your systems dialed in and you are not double data entering everything, and every loan's not completely different, when you have it down to a widget, and it could just be you or you and a partner or the people that you have on your team, when everyone knows exactly what happens in the loan process, both before closing and after, and it moves smoothly, that's something you can scale. When it's complex and one-off and every deal's different and blah, 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 that doesn't scale. Not in any kind of way that's profitable and enjoyable. And we have a number of other examples. I know Jason's got some stuff right on the top of his head. So what do you think? What first comes to mind here?
Well, there's a few things. Like, let's talk about when, right? Like, when do you want to scale? And a lot of this has to do with, what do you want? Like, do you want to deploy $2 million of your own money responsibly into good deals? Do you want to run $100 million company, right? Like, there's a few, there's a big spectrum. The beautiful part about this business is you can choose the size that you want. We were talking to an Inner Circle member the other day, and he's potentially trying to bring on a business partner. And one of our questions was like, why? What's the reasoning why you want to bring on a business partner? And then, like, what level are you trying to get on? So many people think about today and tomorrow, and that's it. They don't really think too far down the road. And we were privy to learn about goal setting early on in our business with one of our early business coaches. And it was really, really interesting how you can create these pretty crazy goals and stress test them and kind of understand why you want that. And then, in essence, after you know what you want, you just work backwards, right? And things change. There's speed bumps in your business all the time, right? Like, all the time you're like, wait a second, like, I thought I wanted to build this gigantic business, but what goes along with a gigantic business? Like, gigantic amount of crap, lots of employees, lots of deals, lots of overhead, lots of everything. If that's something that you want, great. But that might not be for everybody. So, we've talked about this before, that obviously there's three things inside a hard money lending business that you need, right? You need to raise capital. You need to find good deals for deal flow, and you need the knowledge. And you can't have like one of them and not the others. One of the things that I know that we both discussed, and we put this in one of the first books that we ever wrote called The Whiteboard, was education versus execution. And a lot of folks know a lot of things, right? Like, they learn, but then they don't execute. They don't do anything. And on the other side, there's folks that are very fast and loose, that they don't fully know what they're doing, but they just freaking go. And they go. And then, in essence, like, that could be a problem as well, right? You can make bad mistakes by doing that. So I think related to scaling is you have to start slow. You have to start slow. And that doesn't mean like, hey, I'm going to do one deal in my first year. You don't have to do that. Like, you can do multiple deals, but you got to do it responsibly, and you got to do it the right way. Go out, market for deals, go market for money, continue to learn the business. right? Be ultra conservative, and keep growing and keep doing deals. And I think both of us probably agree that we know a lot inside this business, and we pretty much know how to do almost everything inside of our current business. And that doesn't mean that there's not other folks doing the keystrokes, but that was the way that we learned it, was doing everything ourselves until we just didn't have enough time to do them. And then we started growing a team.
Yeah, this is a good topic, and you can go in so many different directions on this one. And one that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned at the beginning is, what is it exactly that you're scaling? And here's what I mean. It's very common for us to have conversations with inner circle members, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm at 5 million. I want to get to 10. Eventually down the road, I want to get to 20, or I'm at $20 million portfolio and I want to get to 50, and then eventually like get into 2 other markets and get to 100." It's like, okay, but why? Like you have these volume goals, loan portfolio goals, units. You know what no one ever says is, I want to take home $1 million a year, or I want to take home X amount a year. And they should, to be honest, because at the end of the day, what we're all doing business for is for the bottom line, for the take home income for us and our families, and also the lifestyle that comes along with it. Like, that's tangible. Like having, you could have 100 million outstanding and have a 2-point margin, and that sounds great, kind of. Or you could have, $50 million outstanding and have a 6-point margin, and you're way ahead of the game. So I think that people need to dial in a little bit more on what is it you're scaling and why. Like, that honestly is super common in the inner circle. And there's nothing wrong with having portfolio and volume and unit goals. We have them too, but we also have those bottom line goals, and we always have since the beginning. That's what I wanted to go ahead.
I mean, it depends on what you want. And I think you got to take ego aside on some of this, because the biggest portfolio doesn't always win. The biggest portfolio potentially could have the most headaches. I mean, you've probably heard a story that we've shared about a local hard money lender that we're friendly with, and they had a very similar size portfolio to us, about $40 to $50 million of private capital, their own money, things like that. And then 8 years ago or years back, they took on institutional capital because they really wanted to grow and scale. And they got to about $150 million pretty quickly. And we saw them at an event, and they're like, "Hey, listen, man, like I know approximately this, what your net margins are, your net income is based on your size of business, because we used to have a business similar to yours, and we did $150 million this year, and we're just scraping by, and we're making significantly less money than you guys are." They took on significantly more overhead. They had significantly less margins. Now, that being said, they were trying to grow that thing to like $1 billion operation, right? And hundreds of employees and things like that. That's not what we want. That might be what somebody else wants. That's not what we want. We're very regimented about what our goals are. Like, we have a nice little staff, and we're comfortable with that staff, right? Like, we have good people. We believe that they're compensated very, very nicely for their positions, and like, that's good for us. And again, it's hard to think like this, but like, I just feel like a lot of folks just don't fully know where they want to go and where they want to get to. And it's no secret that like at some point we're trying to be completely self-funded inside our business. And like, if you do the math, if you're the individual investor on all of these deals, like, you're going to be making 20% plus on your capital if you're finding the deals and doing everything else. Like, it's a lot, right? It ends up being a lot. I actually was having this conversation with somebody recently about, hey, like, when's it time to sell? It's like, I don't, these are hard companies to become saleable companies. I'm not saying they can't be, but like, it's an investment vehicle, right? It's an investment vehicle, a family investment vehicle that continues to grow if you do it the right way. If you're very responsible, always doing good deals, so you never lose principal, right? You got to be responsible. And it's an investment vehicle that can spit out, very, very hefty returns that most investments will not spit out. It's an investment vehicle. So we've always thought of this as an investment vehicle. And I would challenge folks listening or watching to think about it more than just a business, but think about it as a cash flowing business that actually spits out really good income, but also as an investment vehicle on the back end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, super important part of the game plan. And no, it's interesting how it all comes together. Like, especially like when we're, 20 or so lenders working together for a couple days in a row, and how everyone for the most part, there are some, common themes and some common goals that everyone in the group shares, but not entirely. Like, people look at it in some different ways, and that additional kind of viewpoint, I think, is really, really beneficial, which is exactly why we created the inner circle, is because it didn't exist before. And it's something that we always wanted to have in our industry, especially when we were earlier in the game, and we could have, frankly, shortcutted a lot of the learning curve that we had to go through trial and error, step by step, all that stuff. So that is why we made the inner circle, and we've been super stoked to see it grow and to see how much value the members are getting from it, and how it's affecting their businesses and lives and everything else. It's really awesome to see it.
Well, think about this. I think entrepreneurship is a very lonely world. A lot of real estate investors and individual private investors are in a lonely world. Maybe they have a business partner, maybe they don't. But and then you have private lending and hard money lending that is so niche, right? It's so niche that it's just not a lot of information and education. And, one of the things I love about not just the inner circle group, but the whole mastermind group in general is, folks that are very successful and have big established businesses, still sometimes have, questions or issues that, maybe somebody who's just starting can help out with, right? Just because
Sure.
they've never been through it. It's like, hey, I just wrote this first loan in this particular state. My attorney's not very helpful. They're just giving me the legal opinion letter. I need a business decision of what to do in this particular case. Should I foreclose on the judgment? Should I foreclose on the property? Should I do it deed in lieu? Like, what would you do in this particular situation? Because maybe someone's never been involved in that. There's so many different things, and there's so many different skill sets that can bring to the table. So it's good to have a community of all that. But, just keep in mind, the topic of, think about when you want to scale, and when you are ready to scale, how to do it. Obviously, the best way to scale is just throw some gasoline on lead flow. Anyone who has good deal flow over and over and over, good things happen when you have good opportunities. I'm not talking about, hey, I'm a 700 credit score real estate investor and I flipped a lot of houses and I'm looking for 100% financing, right? I'm not saying they're not a good operator, but that person that also has 20, 30+% down into the deal, they have experience, they have good credit, they know what they're doing, they have good characteristics, things like that. Go find good opportunities side by side, continue to raise. If you don't have all the capital that you need, continue to go raise capital side by side. And, it turns into a big thing. One other real quick thing, because it was a comment on the mastermind that I answered, and this by no means is calling out this person, because it's definitely something that, we had thought we would have thought through it. So I thought it was a good question, but he got a really good opportunity and it was a big loan amount. And he asked if he should cut price on it. He was like, hey, I don't want to lose this deal. It's a big loan amount. Should I cut price? And I'm like, it depends on the situation. I was like, because they're somewhat of a newer lender. And I'm like, are you still in capital raising mode? Meaning, do you have more deals than you have capital? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I'm, the seesaw is more on, I have more deals and I have more capital this time. I need a little bit more capital. And I'm like, if that's the case, do not cut price. You don't need to cut price in that particular case, right? I understand that instead of, you're getting one deal instead of 3 or 4. So why not do it a little bit cheaper? But you don't necessarily need to cut price on that particular case. Now, if you're extremely well capitalized, going back to the supply and demand chart, you're extremely well capitalized,
and you need to deploy.
And you really want to get it on the street, and it's a really, really strong deal. Sure, consider doing that way. But we've been very diligent about keeping our terms where they're at. And I know there's been a lot of chatter inside the group related to how are you getting these borrowers to put up so much money down? How are you getting your borrowers to continue to pay $12.99 and 3 points? And a lot of it's education. Educating the borrower on the way that we work, selling our company on, the benefits of working with us, and it's deal flow. And typically the challenge that most folks have with underwriting is they just don't have enough deals to look at. So that's an additional tip for today.
Very true. Big topic, important topic when it comes to scaling and doing it right and everything else. Maybe we'll revisit this one on a future podcast, because there are definitely some more things that we could throw in there. So yeah, like we started with, if anybody's interested in the inner circle, check out Hard Money Mastermind innercircle.com to make application. See you next time, Private Lenders Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.